Hello again, here we are. As you may be able to hear, I don't know how well the thunder is transmitting. We're in the middle of a monsoon storm, and we've got some pretty good lightning and thunder. Sometimes the power kicks out for a while and then comes back. At the moment it's back after having been out for about an hour or so. So we're going to just start as if everything's fine and we'll continue. If power cuts out, if we lose power again, we will just continue doing the practice, mind to mind. I'll give some instructions now for how to work with that a little bit, and then we'll do that for a while. And we think that the power is going to stay on. We also think that if it cuts out, it'll come back on. These storms only last usually for a couple of hours. It's not, the whole afternoon and evening usually. So that's the way we'll proceed. And so I'll ask you to really look at the practice as the practice of us being together in one mind. When we're meditating, we are of one mind with Garchen Rinpoche. So when we're meditating, we also know that we're of one mind with one another. That's what I mean when I talk about mind to mind. We're not transmitting mind to mind. We're not doing some form of subtle communication or telepathy. That's not at all what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the fact that we sit together in the one mind that we are in the ultimate. And that's the space in which we'll practice, okay? And even if we're not directly experiencing that, that doesn't mean it's not there. That is what is. We are of the ultimate. Momentarily, we're appearing in the relative. I hope that you're beginning, as I am beginning, to really understand this. This is the key teaching. The ultimate is appearances appear. They come and go. In the ultimate, nothing comes, nothing goes. Unborn and undying, unchanging and unmoving. And that's the nature of our mind. We're meeting in that mind. Okay? Thanks. Okay. So, should the power go out, what we're going to do initially, while we still have power, we'll do, I want to speak a bit more about the secret practice and why this is valuable, the training in cultivating the inward attention and resting within, why this is valuable for us as practitioners and as human beings. So then we're going to go into more extended periods of actually sitting with clear awareness applied. I will give some guidance for that. And so if we lose power, and we're going to continue without, then when we come to you'll remember the clear awareness instruction of the secret practice instructions well enough to do them without me being able to speaking at all. And the clear awareness instructions will be to, at the time that you are relaxing and recognizing and just resting in that inward awareness, actually seeing the mind's condition, moving, things coming and going, thoughts rising and falling away, and you are not responding in any way to the thoughts or to the images or whatever you see moving in mind, you're simply resting in clear awareness. So clear awareness is what sees that which comes and goes, while clear awareness never moves. And mind is of the nature of clear awareness. Thoughts and images and so on are also of the nature of clear awareness. And the mind that sees these is clear awareness itself also. So this is the tripartite, non-parted. I mean, there aren't any parts involved. There's just the three elements of seer, seen, and seeing, non-dual. And we rest in that. Even if you're not thinking that you're seeing it and experiencing it, that is inseparable from who you are. So relax in that knowing, even if your direct experience in that moment you think is not that, nonetheless you are that, and what sees that doubt is the certainty. What sees confusion is wisdom, is clarity. All right? So what sees your doubt and your uncertainty about your practice is mind that is certain because it is the pristine and primordial ultimate wisdom. Okay? And that's the way we'll continue. Until the power comes on again, we're going to continue with the real power that never goes out. Okay? All right. Deal. Thank you for the cup of tea. And I shall take a cup of tea. I think the sun is coming out over here, so I think we're going to be fine. Okay. Oh, traditionally, when we're training in Mahamudra or clear awareness practice is like that in this way, we're using small increments of time to have the experience of preparation, resting, and abiding, and recognizing, glancing, gazing, and recognizing. That's really what our work is directed to. We are not seeking in any way to empty the mind of its appearance of content. We're not interested in that at all. The mind is naturally empty. Our work is simply to clear away that which obscures our vision from seeing that natural state of emptiness and spaciousness, openness of mind. So we are really at ease. There is nothing to be accomplished here. There is only the presence, awareness, recognition, and that's it. So we're going to do maybe 5-minute increments to begin with. I'll gong once to bring us into that experience. I'll gong twice to bring us out. And we'll do maybe a series of very short increments of time. This is the way the training is done traditionally. It's very effective, very helpful. Because when we sit for an extended period and we're not actually in the natural state and we're not recognizing, we're still, we have still mentation and so on. Mentation, that is, not meditation, going on. That's not the state that we want to be habituating or familiarizing. We're very familiar with that state of the conventional mind, dualistic and always moving. So what we're wanting to become familiar with is the fresh, open, clear moment of direct awareness. And for that, we want to repeat over and over again the beginning of the practice, where we're glancing within, recognizing, resting, and then out again, because that's the fresh moment. The seeing happens really like this. If I were to make a single gesture, it's like this. It brings the attention within, and that is the moment of recognizing that is very fresh, very immediate, very spontaneous. And those 3 words characterize very nicely the experience of the natural mind. Fresh, open, and spontaneous, yes? So I think that's enough words for the moment. So let's do it, okay? There may be more words coming. So we'll start, before we start, I knew there would be another word or two. Before we start, I want to speak a little bit to why we're training in cultivating the inward attention. We talk about self-grasping, that's the origin and cause of all suffering of any kind for sentient beings. It's that grasping to the illusion of an inherently existing self. That grasping expresses not necessarily consciously in regard to self-grasping, but every form of grasping or clinging is self-grasping, self-clinging. Every form of it, even if it's like at lunch there was a delicious cookie served and a little bit remained in the gap between 2 of my ancient teeth. And I must say, we know the habit of the tongue going to where there's something between the teeth, but this was my mind going there. I wanted that last little bit of cookie taste. So I kept trying to dislodge it from my teeth so I could enjoy the rest of it. Didn't work. But that form of grasping is also self-grasping. It doesn't have to have a big announcement saying, I am now grasping to the illusion of a permanently and solidly existing self. Doesn't need that at all. It's just anything where there's tension, stiffness, rigidity, reaching for or pushing away or making up some kind of elaboration about, all of that is the activity of self-grasping. And as it says in the prayer, Kuntu Zangpo, the activities of grasping and clinging are endless. Have you noticed that in the split second in which mind is simply regarding itself, wisdom mind is noticing conventional mind, there is momentarily, for a split second, no grasping. That's the state of aware relaxation and rest that I keep calling our attention to. That's a state momentarily, however long or short it may be, isn't important. That in that moment, there is no self-grasping. That's why there is this extraordinary sense of relief and relaxation. So, because we habitually are reaching out for every appearance, reaching in for every experience, we're constantly like this. The moments that we can train in drawing the awareness within, drawing the attention within, those are the moments in which we're cultivating the ground for awareness to be perceived, recognized. The inward attention. We must look innerly. My first Lama, Khenpo Tsewang Dongyal Rinpoche, said to me, look innerly, always look innerly. His English is now perfect, but then it was perfect, but not quite necessarily exactly the way some of us would have said things, but innerly, look innerly, always look innerly. And Rinpoche's teaching about it is, don't look at the thought, look at what sees it. Don't get preoccupied with the problem or the trouble or the poison. Always and only look at clear awareness. Always and only look at clear awareness. And it's the inner, initially, that training with the inward attention. Remember, the eyes being open means that the inward attention is happening for us in the context of also seeing that which is our surround, our field. And remember in the 37 practices, the verse, all appearances are one's own mind. All appearances are one's own mind. Verse 22. Okay? So looking within or looking without, one is looking at one's own mind. I know that sounds tricky, but it's true. And we will experience that. If not this weekend, perhaps the next. Don't worry, result is not the issue here. The process is what we are joyfully engaging in for the liberation of all our relations. Okay? Now the tea might be cool enough. I'll take a sip. And the storm is gone, I believe. Okay. So, the 3 cleansing breaths. I don't need to instruct, I don't think, except maybe briefly for somebody who hasn't been here this morning. We are breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth 3 times. And on the exhale, we're making this sound like a snake or like a kettle. And bringing that breath all the way to the end, thinking we can't exhale any further, going a little further with a little push. And then suddenly letting go just like that. And the body takes the next breath without our having to do anything about it. So 3 times we do that. And then we move to the next phase, which I'll give a brief instruction for when we get there, but really brief. These are just pointing out again. Okay? So 3 breaths. Remember, eyes open. Now gathering oneself within the central stream of energy flowing up and down, earth to sky, sky to earth. These are the lineages of wisdom and truth. Imagine, sense, or visualize a current of energy moving up and down between earth and sky. They meet in the heart, these currents. They meet at the spiritual heart center. The arms are outstretched and the hands open. And we are aware that where those two currents meet, the horizontal current and the vertical current, sets up a motion whereby we spin or circle, or we become like a globe, transparent and dynamic and luminous. And the upward and downward energies meeting the horizontal energies. The horizontal are the expression, the activities of love in the worlds in the plural. So you could imagine a dynamic movement, or you can sense that or feel it, or not. It can also simply be like a drawing, an illustration, or maybe it becomes multidimensional visually for you. It's expansive, luminous. The eyes continue to be open, not staring, not looking at anything. We're looking within the mind, glancing into the mind, ordinary seeing of thoughts and mind movements and so on. So a quick glance within, seeing the mind, the consciousness, and then what sees that? Perhaps in a given moment, the mind's the consciousness, the contents appear to be startling or very interesting. It might be kind of like this: what sees that? Or perhaps there are appearances or experiences of suffering that you recognize when you look into your mind's condition. Maybe the voice of compassion is saying, what sees that? Or maybe you're startled. What sees that? Or what sees this? It can be very intimate, very intimate. Clear awareness, recognizing clear awareness. And then finally, in this sequence, you glance within and then you are gazing within, relaxing, recognizing, and resting. The breath becomes more subtle and fine, and breath, deep ease moving in the body. And then we sit in that state, gazing within, periodically asking ourselves, what sees this? Continuing to breathe just normally. So I'm going to go on one time, and we'll have a particular period of meditating in this way, and 2 gongs will bring us back out again. Eyes open, in a relaxed, soft gaze. Doesn't have to be straight ahead. Look down slightly. Just refresh yourself by moving around a little bit. Loosen up your spine. Whatever arises in the mind and consciousness, it's none of your business. No need to involve yourself at all. Let it arise, see it, don't react, don't do anything, don't engage, don't grab it, don't push it away, don't follow it, make up a story. And it will subside into its own nature. Clear awareness sees it. It is of the same nature as clear awareness. When they meet, thought dissolves. So, another round. Draw the attention within. Mind looking at consciousness, mind looking at mind. At the same time, eyes open. Soft, open, relaxed gaze. move around a little bit to loosen up. Still holding the inward attention, I invite you to just look around you. To see what you see without needing to do anything about it. The inward attention now in partnership with the outer vision, which is not activated in any way, it simply is. You are seeing what's in front of you, and you're seeing the seeing mind within you. Only it's not really within you. The inward attention reveals it within. But that seeing mind is vast. It's vastness itself. And so as the seeing mind, in my case, I'm moving my eyes around the temple, I'm turning my head, I'm looking. Really not so much looking, but just seeing, gazing. So I see the deities, the decorations, I see through the windows, I see the hills. I see the fans moving around. And I'm not engaged in any way with any of that. I'm simply here, seeing what's here with me. And that ease of body that I mentioned earlier, that's present in my awareness with this kind of looking without grasping. There is simply ease and simplicity of being with whatever one sees within or without. So this in itself is a meditation of love, because simply to be with what is to be in a state of love, not asking anything to be different, just being with. And it's not only a mental state, it's really not a mental state in the conventional sense, it's a state of mind-body. Body is also participating. And the being with is felt in a bodily sense as well as registered in the mind. This is a very gentle form of radical presence. Very gentle, soft. Sometimes radical presence is like a blazing sword. Other time like a mother holding her child. Other times like a colt playing in a field. Other times like the field. The whole universe, I feel shaking our hand, or something like that. They're open and spacious and effervescent. Effervescent. The state of reality, which is described as being void in its nature, that's what's referred to in the Dharma as emptiness. I'm not sure that that's, I don't know about that translation. It doesn't seem to work in English completely, but it refers to the fact that there's no solid, there's nothing. It's not nothingness, but there's nothing in there's nothing solidly existing. That's what's meant by void nature. Everything arises in appearance, appears for a moment and subsides. Gone. Was it ever here to begin with? It certainly appears to be, but it's gone as if it didn't have any existence, which is described as emptiness. It has appearance. There was something I was going to say about that, but I can't remember what it was. So let's do one more round of the inward attention, calling the attention within, a glance and then gazing, resting, abiding in the inward attention, spreading out in the inward attention, allowing yourself just to be at ease and loose and open, spacious and undemanding, and not reacting to the reactions that you have. You see something and react, let it be. It's not your problem. If you don't touch it, it won't touch you back. Okay, so we'll do another 10 minutes or so. I wanted to say, are there any questions? If there are, ask clear awareness. Really, if there is any question, ask clear awareness. That's your mind. It's not apart from or other than wisdom mind. So just gather yourself in an easy, loose way. Let's take a break for a while, maybe 20 minutes or so. And I was going to say, we'll ring the bell when it's time to come back in, but unless you're in, you wouldn't hear the bell. Because, oh well. That's just thinking we're all physically here together for a moment. During the break, do what you need to do for your biological comfort and ease. And then also maybe just walk around a little bit if it's suitable where you are and time of day permits, or you can walk inside if outside isn't right. And cultivating the inward attention as you walk, finding your stability not necessarily in orienting to outside markers, which we often use for stability physically, but orienting to the, I call it the spiritual gyroscope inside, the vertical and horizontal dimensions, meeting in the heart, like very dynamic and also stabilizing, very stabilizing. And then resting in clear awareness as you walk. After our last retreat in April, I had a very brief and delightful correspondence with somebody who asked me to send my instructions for walking meditation. And I wasn't sure what this person referred to because I hadn't given any such instructions. So I just sent back the following message. I said, here are the walking instructions. First one foot, then the other, with clear awareness of the ground. I think he did fine. So those are the walking instructions if you decide to walk in the state of clear awareness. Okay, so we're on break. As we continue with this practice, over time, it's very gradual for most people, I think. Certainly for me, it's rather gradual that I see the effectiveness of this kind of practice that we've been doing today. Clear awareness practice on the base of the secret practice. The secret practice really is to train us to the inward attention and to opening to the wisdom movement, the dynamics of wisdom which are within mind but also experientially registered in body as well. And I want us to be friendly to the bodily experience. With our highly toned and tuned dualistic consciousness, we are very inclined to think that this is all in mind, meaning brain, related. But really, this pristine primordial wisdom mind that we're talking about is not contained within this cranium. It's not contained within the brain or the head. It is the pre-existing, always present, original reality that we come from. We are appearance, and that is our ground of being, that we can only point to it. Words like wisdom mind, clear awareness, primordial purity, they're just pointers. Nothing can say this is what it looks like, feels like, etc. We can only be really open-minded and curious and responsive to our experience. And the pointers are to help us see where to look and how to look, and to register what we see in the sense of recognizing without concept necessarily, although look how many concepts I can produce in the space of 7 minutes. It's not, it's not difficult to overwhelm yourself with concepts, but they're all simply to point to what is true before, during, and after every concept. What is true was there first. The concepts are our attempts to get back to it. But there's no getting back. It never went anywhere. And nor did we, actually. Only we wander around in mental experience and physical experience, sensory experience. And mostly we wander around with our banners saying I, me, mine, and our pointers saying you, yours, this, that, good, bad, true, false. All that wandering, I think it's pretty good, actually. We can say, well, it's a waste. I think our wandering around is really good. We have karma pushing us from behind, kicking us from behind. Karma meaning the seeds of cause that are imprints on our mind stream, on the alaya consciousness, the all ground, where the karmic imprints are stored. And that's a description from His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche that makes sense to me. I sometimes get lost in thinking, well, karma's empty too. What are we talking about imprints? But there are aspects of mind I don't understand yet, and ways in which cause is set and determined and so on that I don't fully understand. But I watch my mind, not in the sense that I did when I was first giving myself time to learn how to meditate, and I received instructions like watch your mind. So I did assiduously watch my mind. I had no idea that I wasn't supposed to be watching my thoughts. I was watching my thoughts. So of course, guess what? I didn't really see the mind at all. I just saw my thoughts. But now I understand watching the mind is meaning don't follow your thoughts. But nobody explained that to me, or if they did, I didn't understand it. But it took me a few decades to catch up. So now I'm caught up a little bit, at least from time to time. But I think the wandering, the confusion, the afflictions and disturbances of mind and behavior and relationship and world, this is karma playing out. And karma playing out means karma purifying. Our karma purifies whether we want it to or not, because it's dependent on cause and condition. So when the conditions no longer support the cause, that karma's done, and we don't have to do anything about it. We can't prevent it from purifying either. And the purifying of negative karma, of course there's good karma and bad. Karma just means action, but each action lays down a seed that is cause and will produce its effects unless it's purified. And it is taught that there's no seed of karma that is so negative that it cannot be purified by spiritual practice. So practice dedicated to the liberation of all is very efficacious. Whoever you study with can help you find the kind of practice that is really beneficial for you. But the purification process of negative karma is what we call suffering, usually. And it's hard for people in the middle of suffering purification to rejoice, because we think suffering is bad. But once you begin to understand karma a little better, suffering is not looked at the same way. It's not to be feared in the same way, because the suffering is the purification, in other words, the clearing of the negative karma that brought about the condition that now is causing suffering. So that was a sort of complicated way of saying the worse it gets, the better it is. For somebody who's wanting their karmic predispositions to be exhausted in this lifetime, recognize every experience. This is a teaching that Rinpoche gave me. Gachin Rinpoche gave me this teaching personally. He's also given it publicly many times, I think, probably. That he said, rejoice for every sign of physical suffering, or mental or emotional suffering, illness especially, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, whether it's a broken leg or a cold or a flu or COVID or cancer or whatever it is. Rejoice not that you're suffering necessarily, but that this suffering of this illness is the purification of its causes, and particularly with physical illness, mental illness of any kind, the purification is not just of single karmic causes, but individual ones, discrete ones, but of your karmic predispositions, which means the heavy weight of habit that we experience. That's karmic predisposition, meaning what you've done before is going to tend to be what you do again, which means that if you've planted X seed of harm doing, that's going to have a tendency to repeat itself in your inclination and your habits. That's harder to get at than maybe an individual cause of karma. I'm speaking of karma because practice does help us purify karma, partly, I think, in terms of my personal experience, partly by giving me an understanding of how that happens, how it happens that we lay down seeds of karma. The founder of the Drikung lineage, Lord Jigten Sungön, Rinpoche quotes frequently, particularly recently, as saying that the karma is the moment, karmic causation is the moment-to-moment activity of the mind, the thoughts. That's where the seeds of our difficulties lie in the actual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our actual thinking. And because we are not usually, unless we're learning how to practice and practicing what we're learning, we're not usually recognizing those individual thoughts and the thought tendencies or the waves of thinking, similar thinking. We're not usually recognizing them. They're usually coming, going, and we're reacting to them unconsciously, or they're simply accumulating and proliferating. Our conflicting and afflictive emotions, meaning our mental disturbances, if they are not purified, they will proliferate. It's not a maybe, they will proliferate. And so a practice like this, in which we are learning how to see, meaning recognize, register, perceive, the process of thought formation without engaging it, but instead simply recognizing it. In that recognizing moment, that thought disappears. It dissolves back into its own nature, which is mind itself, and no cause is set. But let it proceed a little further, and it begins to move into the causation process. So the way it was first ever described to me was like a bell curve, like this. So here's the introitus, the point where the period in which a thought is beginning to form, sometimes experienced in a mind that's acute and alert as a kind of tendency to think something, or tendency to want to think a thought, or tendency to something, maybe inchoate, not formed. But there's a tendency, and then first there's a kind of tendency or an inclination, and then gradually there's the process of a thought forming. This is the life, death, and the birth, life, and death of a thought, like the birth, life, and death of a star, or the birth, life, and death of a person. So it begins to form, and if you can catch it here, just before it forms, at the moment of inclination, excellent. Just as it's forming, still very excellent. Beginning to rise into the bell curve, getting a little more difficult, but still excellent. Here, fully formed thought. If you can catch it there, excellent. And if you don't catch it there, and yet it's fully formed, coming down off the other side of the bell curve, as the thought begins to decline, some element of causation has already been created here. This is the way I experience it and observe it, and come down and go back off the flat end, the departure. So it's the birth, life, the period of abiding, a thought form actually abiding, and then the dissipation of it. Also excellent. Any point, any of these 3 points, and the section of the bell curve that they describe, is an excellent moment to recognize that thought form. Excellent. At the point of recognition, without reaction, elaboration, grasping or pushing away, the thought form will resolve into its own nature. Off the end of it, there may already be some causation. I'm not enough of a master of karma, to put it mildly, to say yes or no about that, but there may be some element of karmic involvement at this point, but over here there isn't. We haven't yet got a thought form. We've got a kind of inclination, right? Catch it there anytime you can. But if you don't catch it there, catch it anytime you can, and stop and just fix your fishy stare on it. I'm kidding. You need to catch it. It's like a slippery little fish. Catch it wherever you can on the bell curve. Think of that as a nice ocean current, and just be there with it, with your clear awareness, recognizing it. Maybe you'll even recognize some qualities of it or characteristics. You may recognize some storylines wanting to generate. Don't go there. Just recognize it, and with your clear awareness, meet its clear awareness nature, because that fishy thought form is also of the nature of clear awareness, just as your mind is. Okay? That's a little instruction about karma. It's wonderful as an American to be thinking about karma at all, because it's so foreign to the way we think about reality here in this culture. We don't think that way at all. We think, I'm hurting, must be someone's fault. Where's my lawyer? Let me say one other thing about karma that was interesting. After the last retreat, and actually before that it had happened one other time, but after the last clear awareness retreat, I remember speaking during that retreat. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember saying that I had been trying to, I had recognized in a state of extreme suffering, I had recognized a karmic pattern, which had been very visible all my lifetime. It's just that I hadn't looked at it. I mean, I'd caught glimpses of it, and then I'd carefully looked in a different direction. But I reached a point where this particular karmic pattern was causing tremendous confusion in my life, and some real suffering that had me on the floor, basically saying, "Help, please." Which is, for somebody with my bodily injuries and discomforts, to be on the floor is a challenge, because it's easier to get down, but getting up is not so easy. But I find myself sometimes on the floor in front of my little shrine table in my cave, and this is one of those occasions I was on the floor just saying, I can't imagine that that I've let this continue all these years in this lifetime. I need to purify this. I need to really clear this one up. Please help. And I was really abject. Abject was just the right word. And so, of course, when you're abject and you're on the floor of the cave in front of the shrine, you're asking for help. You get help. And the help was to rub my face in it, I really got it about what this pattern was. And I saw it went all the way back to early childhood, not the cause of it, but the pattern in this lifetime was showing itself even in early childhood. I couldn't have articulated it, I couldn't have described it, but as I looked back, I could see it there. And I could see it in behavior, I could see it in remembrances of actual thoughts that I had as a little tiny kid. And so there's no point to looking in past lives if you don't see past lives. Some people may see them, but I don't. I mean, maybe every now and then a glimpse, but nothing to write home about. And so I was satisfied to just uproot that karmic pattern for this lifetime, and then maybe later I can go further back. But I don't think it's necessary to go further back. Karma does purify itself eventually. But what I think is necessary, and I think was why I was able to do that uprooting in this lifetime of that particular pattern, which is gone. I recognize still reverberations, but the pattern of activity is gone. What I think is critical that we do is refine our ability, as this practice of clear awareness helps us do, to refine our ability to recognize our thought patterns and our predispositions, behavioral and thought predispositions, at a very subtle, very subtle ones, at a very subtle level or a very subtle condition. It's really easy. For example, say you have a predisposition to a lot of rage, which many do, and I have also in my life, but that's not such an issue anymore. But you'll be happy to know, right? But thunder. Just as I said the word rage, right? Thunder comes. So when you're having a rage attack, it's hard not to see that you're having a rage attack. I mean, you're usually blaming somebody else at that moment, but you're recognizing that your mind is, crazy. You're projecting it, but you're still recognizing it's in you. So some of our thought forms, in other words, are very gross, meaning very easy to recognize. They're right in front of our faces. We can't miss them. Reality is a mirror. Everything is reflecting back to us the condition of our own mind. So some stuff is really easy to see. It's not necessarily easy to work with, but it's easy to identify, so that's a good starting place. Others, like this predisposition that I was mentioning of my own way back in childhood, it's so subtle. And of course, if you don't have a predisposition to want to find what is really causing harm, you will probably not be looking, and I was not. But so subtle that it was easy to avoid all my life, even though all the facts were staring me in the face. But nonetheless, here it was. So I spoke about this in the last retreat. As I'm speaking about it again, apparently I'm very pleased to be able to speak about this. And I had several inquiries about this, about how did you do that? I mean, what do you have to do? What kind of practice do you do in order to see the origin of really harmful mental and behavioral predispositions that are not only the evidence of negative karma, but the current continuing to sow negative karma. So I described this practice and how, for me, it has been the practice of clear awareness, and practices similar to this, awareness practices, but this clear awareness work particularly, that have allowed me to see the mind in that degree of subtlety. And that's not all the time, because I, just like everybody else, would like to look slightly to the side of the stuff that's really rough. But I now have a much stronger inclination to get a hint that there's something going on and go, show me. Let me see that. And to act on it immediately. And I have to say, that's a huge change. And I think for any of us, that would be a huge change, because we really don't operate like that very much. And I don't know anything that's as profound and powerful as this very simple practice of clear awareness that operates so efficaciously in the opening of consciousness to the recognition of mind. And the I'm not sure I phrased that exactly accurately. Maybe I can reverse it and say, to the opening of awareness to its own recognitions of consciousness. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how to wrap the language up in a package to make it just really simple and, okay, here's the package. I think it's in the experience, day by day, moment to moment, between the refrigerator and the stove, where you catch a glimpse of the consciousness that you are living at that moment. And that glimpse is clear awareness, and you recognize it. Right there, like that. It can happen when you're sitting on the cushion too, but I think it's most likely to happen when you're not paying attention to your mind, when you're just doing the dishes, for example, or you're getting something out of the fridge, or you're starting your car, whatever it may be. When your mind is not in practice mode, then the afflictions and the confusions and the intemperate moments and in other words, the karmic predispositions and patterns are running the show. They're just chug, 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 chug. And at that moment, that's just an alarm on my phone. We'll ignore it. Maybe we'll have to turn the phone off. I thought I had already. This is to tell us that
National Weather Service, a flash flood warning is in effect for this area until 6:15 p.m. Mountain Daylight Saving Time.
this is
A
my...
dangerous and life-threatening situation. Do not attempt to travel unless you are fleeing an area subject to flooding or under an evacuation order.
Everybody get that? And so, okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn the phone off now. Thank you. That's because I live in wildfire country, so I have this app that tells me when there's a wildfire, but it also tells me about floods. So we've been having a lot of very serious, very dangerous, and some fatal flash floods in this area. So I'm not exactly sure where I was. A flash flood warning preempted my discussion here, but it's about when you're not paying attention to your mind is just doing its thing, right? Chug, 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 chug. And then if there's a moment, just then when you do see something, it's very fresh. Your seeing is very fresh, and what you're seeing is quite surprised to be seen. So you're catching it unawares. I'm inventing now, but you're catching it unawares in a way, so there's no residue built up of resistance. You're right there looking at it. There it is, looking right back at you. And this dislodges habits. For me, it's dislodging habits of mind. Because right there between the refrigerator and the stove, I'm seeing my consciousness. The clarity of awareness is indisputable. It's right there showing itself to me. And that thought dissolves right then. And every time the nefarious thought form dissolves like that with the clearness of awareness, it loses a bit of its power over your consciousness. And so that's why I started this little riff that I've just been in. I started by saying that it's a gradual process. And it's not in any given session of formal practice that I necessarily recognize, oh, I see that some progress is being made, that I'm beginning to have a sense that the practice is working for me because I'm working with the practice. It's more in these moments when, oh, and then gone. And I realize that's clear awareness taking care of business. I don't have to be on it all the time in some chasing down way of my negative thoughts. I just need to be on it to pay attention when I see that I don't continue to act on it, that I am able to regard it. I regard it with clear awareness, and it vanishes, it dissolves into clear awareness, its own nature. So little by little, I think we don't have to get particularly tough with our thought forms in our mind, although sometimes I do, and I can describe that practice too. Maybe we'll get there tomorrow a bit, or maybe just briefly, I'll say normally we're sitting like this, very, very relaxed, as I spoke of, a lot this morning. Relax and rest in clear awareness. But sometimes, and so you can see the position I'm sitting in now, it's very relaxed. And just looking directly at mind, body also relaxes. Mind relaxes, body relaxes. And then there may come a time when something really shocking arises, or disturbing, or frightening, or whatever, and it's got a hold on you, it's proliferating, and it's you're not able to be completely just with it. You're grasping or repulsing, or you're in danger of falling into elaboration, and you catch yourself and realize, oh, clear awareness, and you may adopt a position like this, which is kind of like an eagle ready to pounce upon its prey. And then you're really staring it down in a way. Don't blink first. That's also clear awareness. And you'll know when that thought form dissolves into mind, because you're right there. There's a particular syllable. Could you put Hung up on the screen for us? There's a particular syllable of power that Rinpoche invites us to use in clear awareness practice. In Dzogchen practice, people use the word pe that syllable of power to disperse, or to wake ourselves up when there is a thought that we are wanting to cut through. In clear awareness practice, as Rinpoche has been giving it in these last months, the syllable is hung. H-U-N-G is the way it's spelled when we're pronouncing it hung, but it's often seen as H-U-M, and I don't know the details of Tibetan pronunciation, but in what I've been shown and taught and in terms of practice, it's usually sounded as hung, as if it were NG. So Rinpoche has described that when there's, not in these words exactly, but when the thought has you, rather than you having the thought, hung! And then instantly look into your own mind, and you will see that it is empty, like the sky, open, spacious. Just mind like space, empty, empty, empty. And there may be times when it doesn't have to be that strong. When he describes, this description, I love this, you'll be able to tell by the way I talk about it. He talks about hung. Hung is actually the syllable of the absolute, of the ultimate, of the primordial wisdom in all its pristine, original purity. And so when we sound the syllable hung, we are invoking that than which nothing else is more powerful. Nothing is more powerful than truth. Nothing is more powerful than the absolute. I mean, it's even ridiculous to say those sentences. So it can be a gentler hung. It doesn't have to be, that eagle kind of hung. But sometimes I'll be in sort of mindlessness, unconsciousness, just yada, yada, yada. And I realize and that may be happening silently in my mind, in ordinary activities or on the cushion, whatever. I don't sit on the cushion, I sit in a chair because I can't any longer sit in that position. But on the cushion is the phrase we use to mean I'm formally practicing. So it might just be hung. But instantly, as you enunciate hung, you look into your mind very directly, whether it's hung or hung. Or sometimes Rinpoche, and that Rinpoche illustrates with his belly how when you ejaculate the term hung, that syllable, there's a compression in the lower abdomen. In other words, you're expelling with some force. You're expelling air with some force, okay? Hung. You can't see it because I'm hidden here, but hung, hung, hung. Can you see my upper body move slightly in response? So it can be hung, 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 or just hung, or hung. Sometimes I feel very tender to my thought forms of suffering, meaning I feel like a kind of maternal compassion for the suffering itself. And then I might say, hung, 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 hung. Still with a little compression in the lower abdomen, the lower belly, just under the navel, with a little bit of force, but very tender, very gentle, hung, hung, hung. Truth doesn't have to be cutting in order to cut. It doesn't have to be loud and forceful and harsh in order to penetrate falsity. It just needs to be the truth. And hung is the syllable thereof. So those are several different ways of doing that. Another method, I want to give you all of these. I never know really, what's going to happen next. So I want to give you this while it's in my mind. These are methods of practicing clear awareness practice. The main method, of course, is simply direct mind, but sometimes we need additional things or skillful means. So that's what I'm speaking to right now. Another is mingling or blending. And this is actually rather delightful, that you're mingling clear awareness with appearance. Very often when we're working with clear awareness practice, we're working within. We're working with what's arising in the mind. And remember, I said that Rinpoche's instruction is very definitively, don't engage with the problem or the suffering. Always and only look at clear awareness itself. Because there's a tendency for us to say, okay, here's what's wrong, let me do something about that. I have clear awareness to see it, now let me do something. We don't have to do something with it. Clear awareness is what is brought into the conscious intention, and you can, let's say that the problem is a thought form or a thought pattern or a form of suffering that you're experiencing. With clear awareness, you simply see that, and remember that seeing also means bodily experience, and mental registration doesn't necessarily pertain to visual, but you're recognizing that there's a form of suffering or confusion going on within, and your recognizing is clear awareness, and so you bring that clear awareness to that suffering or confusion in the sense of blending with it, mingling with it. It's like maybe gently stirring or just letting clear awareness come down onto or into that trouble. Trouble is experienced in very different ways at different times by different people, or different ways and different times by oneself. And so sometimes it's mingling and blending, sometimes it's hung to disperse it. Always, it includes looking directly into your own mind. So after mingling or with mingling, but after mingling, look directly into the mind and see the dissolution of the thought form that was so troubling. After hung, instantly look within, like this. Just the way we're trained to do through the secret practice, like this. Just instantly look within. It is empty. Hung takes it away. All confusion dissolves into Hung. Hung is the essence of clear awareness. In the same manner, one can look with clear awareness, one can bring clear awareness to external appearances. For example, this is just a very recent example. There's a lovely old town called Cottonwood here in the valley that we look out on, and it's on the Verde River, which is a big, real river. A lot of rivers in Arizona are kind of ephemerals, meaning they only exist in rainy season, but the Verde River is wide and deep and runs all year. And last week, a young girl, a 16-year-old girl, was carried away by a flash flood in Cottonwood on the Verde, or tributary of the Verde. And I was talking with a friend who didn't know about it. I mentioned it. She and I both have spent time in Cottonwood together, and I mentioned it to her, and she said, I just wish there were some way that, even though she's already died, that, we could do something besides, some of the practices that we can do for somebody who has died. And I had just been working with clear awareness in preparation for being with you, and I realized, let's go there right now at the moment of her realizing what was happening, and mingle clear awareness with her terror. And we did that. And because really, in truth, there's only one mind there's many consciousnesses and there's many individual small minds, therefore, but the capital M mind, only one. I mean, in a sense, that's a form of Tonglen, a little different from Tonglen, but the same motivation to free from suffering. And clarity was what we observed, clear awareness. We mingled clear awareness with our perception of her terror, and our minds were clear without any without a troubled thought in our minds. And I can't say, I'm not a qualified Lama to say, yes, her suffering was redeemed and dispersed or whatever. I make no such claim. But I remember when Rinpoche was talking about the mingling and talking about, in clear awareness practice, he said, just sort of as an aside, and he didn't pursue it, but he said, this can also be done retroactively, that you can bring clear awareness into the suffering retroactively. It was just a one sentence, and he didn't pick it up and come back to it, at least not when I was in teachings with him. So I think that was where the thought came from, to do that with this young girl. And I have so much faith in karma, like Rinpoche. I mean, I'm learning this from Rinpoche. I have so much faith in karma, and I have so much faith in my Lama. I have so much confidence in my Lama that I am certain that in some way that young girl's terror has been purified. I'm certain of it. I have no idea how that works or what happened. I don't know, but I have confidence in my own direct experience because he's taught me to have confidence in that way. So I'm sharing that with you. Have confidence in your own direct experience. Apply the teachings in the best possible way that you're able to. When they come from a source that you trust and that you know to be inseparable from the essence of Dharma, you can have confidence. So have confidence in your experience. You don't need to talk about it to everybody. I'm only talking about it to the entire globe, so I'm keeping it kind of a secret. But I'm doing this. I'm speaking of this. It's not about me. It's about clear awareness. So I don't have a personal agenda here. But there's no such thing as time. Clear awareness is not limited to right here, right now. It's always right here, right now. There's no limitation involved. So it's entirely impossible for me to think for a minute, actually, that my thinking of that young girl at the moment when she was in terror and realized what was happening to her, it's impossible for me to think that my thinking of her in that moment, even though it was several days later, it's impossible for me to think for an instant that that was not helpful to her. I know it was somehow helpful. And I bow to my Lama for that, because he opened the door by that little comment. It can also be done retroactively. So I take that as you have ears to hear it, and then do it. So that's just private between us. I don't know how many of there you are. I don't know how many are you, or I don't know how many you are here with me right now in this moment, listening. But this is private among us. It could be, thousands. It might only be 4. I don't know. So take all of this lightly, meaning recognize its quality of illumination. Take it lightly as illumination. Let all of these teachings on clear awareness and all of your experience of practice with clear awareness illuminate your already existing, inseparably present, authentic wisdom. I am clear awareness speaking to you as clear awareness about clear awareness that sees us as clear awareness. How's that? for a kind of summation of the relationship? Yeah? Can we work with that? Good. Good. Okay. How are we doing on time? We're doing great on time. So what I was starting to speak to was this little scrap of paper that I wrote some notes on. We don't have to fight or struggle or contend with our thoughts. Little by little, as we practice mingling and blending clear awareness with our thoughts, emotions, troubles, confusions, we gradually come to see how they just naturally resolve, dissolve, fade away in the clarity of awareness. It becomes effortless. And sometimes practice injecting or washing thoughts or consciousness with clear awareness, sluicing them away, for whatever it's worth, that I found when I was planning to sit here with you. And let me just underline that the thing I spoke to about uprooting root causes, or the best we can get, as far as we can get towards the root of negative causes. The causes of personal karma, we can't necessarily, and Rinpoche's spoken to this, and lamas I've read also, teachers I've read also have spoken, you can't necessarily see the specific cause, but you can see, my experience in what I was speaking from to you just now today, we can see in our present mind, consciousness and actions, our behavior, the tendency, the tenor or the quality or the character of what that causation is. We can see that. And sometimes that's all the information that we need in order to know what we're dealing with and to become extremely vigilant about how those qualities or characteristics or tendencies pop up from time to time in our present awareness and present consciousness and present activity or behavior. Our conduct particularly needs to be watched in that respect. So even though you can't necessarily go back to prior lifetimes, and I don't think you need to. At least we don't. Most of us don't need to. We can see right through the present mental condition and conduct of body, speech, and mind, what the tendencies are, and so, for example, Rinpoche teaches a lot about jealousy. He's the only Lama I've ever sat with who teaches a lot about jealousy. But you'll note that Kuntu Zangpo was very specific to include jealousy in his instructions, and we're going to do more specific work with these things tomorrow. But if jealousy, for example, is one of your predispositions or a recurring kind of tendency in your life, emotionally, mentally, or behaviorally, I wrote here just this note for you: acknowledge, investigate, and eventually have the courage and willingness and ability to see that tendency, to see it. And then you don't have to know anything about prior lifetimes in order to take responsibility for what you see in this lifetime. Should I repeat that? You don't have to know anything about prior lifetimes in order to take responsibility for what you see about yourself in this lifetime. Now, it's on YouTube if you need to hear it again. Go listen to it on YouTube. It's really important. It's very easy to evade responsibility, we think, but we're not evading responsibility ever. We're just deferring the moment in which we can, by conscious choice, for the benefit of all beings, pick up every pebble we can find that sometimes in the traditional teaching is described as a dark pebble or a black pebble. Every pebble that is of negativity or harm-doing or non-virtue or ignorance, confusion. Rinpoche at one point so many years ago, I can't even remember, said, your thought forms are sentient beings. If you love them, you will liberate them all. And he gives us the method. It's this kind of practice, specifically clear awareness, Mahamudra practice. I found something that I want to read to you just briefly. I know I'm talking a lot. We're going to practice again tonight. Actually, we have a session of practice this evening, and then we'll be practicing again tomorrow. So, we're together right now. I can talk to you and share teachings. It's so important for us to have authentic teachings. They've changed my life, and I'm sure I know they've changed the lives of many of you who are here. And I have had the good fortune of being with Gotchen Rinpoche for quite a long time, really 20 minutes maybe, but since 1997. And he said of the ordinary naked awareness, he was speaking specifically about Mahamudra practice at the time, but clear awareness practice and Mahamudra practice, in essence, not different. He was speaking of it. The ordinary naked awareness is what he spoke to. He didn't say clear awareness at that time in the same way we are today. But he said, and this is a direct quotation, he said, you too are at this shore, the shore of ultimate wisdom. You too, you also are at this shore. He said, when you have realization, you have freedom from doubt. If there is doubt, this itself is the obscuration. When you have realization, one of the ways you know is because you have spiritual certainty. It's unshakable. From then on, you're practicing to familiarize yourself with it. The spiritual certainty, one of my former teachers called it spiritual sovereignty at that point. And it's not something someone else can give you, it comes from your own direct experience. It is in your own direct experience. It's freedom from doubt. And Rinpoche also said, and this is very directly related to what we're doing here today and this whole weekend, it is our ordinary consciousness that we need to look at. Investigating it, it becomes like space. To look at, but not to dwell in, because then he says, directly after that, he says, look directly at the one who knows, the clear knowing capacity itself. You remember I said earlier today, we have no business trying to empty our minds. That's not what we're here for. We shouldn't even give a single thought to emptying our minds, because the next thing that will happen is you'll have a thought about emptying your mind, having emptied it or having not emptied it. So then you empty your mind for a moment, the next thing comes another sequence of thoughts. The mind, the brain-based mind is going to produce electrical activity until you're dead, and maybe even a little bit after that. I don't know exactly how that works, but so as long as we're alive, the brain is going to be producing what we call thoughts in some way or another. I mean, maybe they don't function as thoughts that we associate with thinking, but brain activity. But Rinpoche says, as I've said probably 3 or 4 times already today, always and only look at clear awareness. See the one who sees. Okay then. We have, I would say, maybe 20 minutes left, and then we want to do some closing prayers. So we have a half an hour left, and we're going to do closing prayers. It takes usually about 10 minutes, right? Oh no, it's 4:30 now. Ha ha ha! We have no time left. Oh, okay then. I guess I was still cued to thinking we were going to end at 5, but anyway, it's time to end. So we'll do our closing prayers for tonight. I'll be back here at 7. Is it 7 I'm scheduled to be back? Yeah, 7 o'clock. So 7 until roughly 8. I might do 45 minutes instead of an hour. It sort of depends on how awake I am, actually. So I don't mean that in the enlightened sense. I meant that in the physical sense. But at least 45 minutes of practice from 7. And I hope that as many of you as can will join me for that. I'll take a minute also before we do the closing prayers to do this little housekeeping thing. I forgot to mention that we're in silence, so except for when we're here. But if any of you find that you would like to and are able to, given your circumstances, I would strongly encourage that at the end of this session, when we go out the door from here at the end of the session, that we maintain as complete silence as we can until we meet again tomorrow at 9:30. In other words, that you give yourself the spaciousness of stillness to allow the mind to continue its relaxation in clear awareness. And that will also come into your dream state, it'll come into your sleeping in that way as well. And you may find yourself in the night then awakening in clear awareness. That silence really supports that stilling of the ordinary mind, the conventional mind. So from 4:30 today, which is now at the end of this session, until tomorrow at 9:30 when we meet again, I wish that you would join me in silence. And that sometimes there's necessary speech, and that's fine. But basically, have silence as your intention, if it suits your circumstances and you desire to do that. So when we're in retreat, the opening and closing prayers that are most extensive are the ones at the first session of the retreat and the last session of the retreat. But after every activity that is of benefit and intended to be of benefit, it's very important to dedicate the merit. So we're going to do some closing prayers before we end today, or as our end today, and they are in the yellow book on pages, starting on page 11. We'll do some of the ones there, and then we'll do the World Peace Prayer, which is in the blue prayer book on page 38. Okay? And if you don't have it, it's fine. Just join your mind with mine as I recite them. That's good too. So dedication prayers. Tomorrow, if I remember, or if I'm kindly reminded by somebody, I'll speak a little bit more about why it's so important to do the dedication prayers. Okay. By this merit may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. By all the virtue actually performed and mentally created by myself and all sentient beings of the 3 times, may all beings of the 6 realms attain the 5 kayas and realize the primordial wisdom of the Buddhas in the Dharmadhatu mandala of the awakened mind. Glorious root guru, precious one who sits upon a lotus at my heart, hold me with kindness and grant me all accomplishments of enlightened body, speech, and mind. I pray for the excellent health of the Guru. I pray that he lives a supremely long life. I pray that his activities spread far and wide. Grant blessings that I may not be separate from my Guru. May the Buddha's teachings, the only source of benefit and happiness, endure long, and may the victory, banner, or longevity for those upholding the teachings be steadfast. Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues. As all such dedications have been praised as supreme by the victorious ones of the 3 times, I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue to excellent conduct. By the blessing of the Buddhas who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging nature of reality, and by the blessing of the undivided Sangha community, may my prayers be fulfilled according to this dedication. By the virtues accumulated in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the intrinsic root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious awakening. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage gurus, divine assembly of yidams, assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, Yogini and her assembly of Dakinis, all of you dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of attachment, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, respect, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. At the moment of death, may I not experience the suffering of being abruptly severed from this life. May I not suffer a terrible death. May I not die confused by wrong views. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind itself and in the crystal clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. And then we do long life prayers for our gurus, for our lamas, for His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. Tenzin Gyatso, Lord Chenrezig, may you remain steadfast until the end of samsara. His Holiness Drikung Kyabgun Chetsang Rinpoche and his brother, His Holiness Drikung Kyabgon Chungtang Rinpoche, are the 2 heads of the Drikung lineage. Embodiment of the 3 jewels, great being who upholds and increases the teachings of the Shakya Lion. Supreme are your activities of guiding others with your perfect deeds. May you, the precious Guru who accomplishes everything spontaneously, live long. Holder of the teachings of Lord Drikungpa, great Lord of the 3 jewels, through the power of your peerless compassion and the holy Dharma's peace and light, you bring relief to beings. May your life be long. His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, the one known in the Holy Land as Arya Deva, emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Chudingpa, the heart son of Jigten Gompo. May the life of glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. And this is a long life prayer for His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche that was composed by the Dalai Lama. Crown of the Shakyas, kind friend to strangers, the 17 great Panditas, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, Jigten, Sumgon, and their lineage heirs, please bestow good fortune and auspiciousness. Protector Amitayas, transcendent Lord, who grants supreme life everlasting, stable and unchanging, and who diverts from an untimely death anyone who merely hears your name or thinks of you, please bestow good fortune and auspiciousness. Living austerely in the higher training of discipline, full of compassion that is the glory of those to be tamed, devoid of all grasping, never parting from Mahamudra's natural state, Nidun Tenpe Nyima, son of the teachings, may your life remain firm. May the teachings of the great Drikungpa Ratnashri, Master of Interdependence, omniscient Lord of Dharma, who's seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation. May bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Then there are some other ones that will be included when we complete the retreat tomorrow. But meanwhile, we want to do the prayer for world peace and welfare. And this was written I'm trying to think what the date was. 18 something, I think, perhaps. It's extraordinary and very instructive to see how timely it is to the present moment. The 3 jewels and 3 roots, trustworthy source of refuge, and in particular the Lord of Snow, Avalokiteshvara, Jetsuntara, and Guru Padmasambhava, I supplicate you, please follow your previous pledges. Bestow blessings that this aspiration prayer may be fulfilled most perfectly. Due to the degeneration of times, when thoughts and deeds of beings are perverted, and the inner and outer elements have lost their balance, humans and cattle are seized by epidemic disease previously unheard of. Intruding Rahus, Nagas, powerful demons and dark forces, blight, frost and hail, bad harvest, warfare, and so forth, erratic rainfall, heat, misery and droughts in the world, destruction by the elements such as earthquakes and the threat of fire, and in particular barbaric offenses causing harm to the teachings are rampant. May all types of harm and injury around the world be swiftly pacified and overcome. May precious and supreme bodhicitta spontaneously arise in the mind streams of all beings, human and non-human, and may they be free from destructive thoughts and deeds. May all be endowed with a loving mind for one another, and may well-being, glory, and prosperity prevail throughout the world. May the Buddha's teachings spread far and wide and ever last. By the truthful power of the 3 roots, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, by any root of virtue existing in samsara and nirvana, and by the power of our perfectly pure highest intention, may the fruition of our supplication and aspiration be attained. Thank you. Sorry to keep you a little longer, but I'd actually like to keep you forever. Actually, why am I saying I'd like to? I will keep you forever, as you will keep me forever. We'll keep each other on the path together, making progress for the benefit of all. That's it for tonight. In spoken words together, I'll see you at 7 for those of you who can come and join me here. Thank you.